your events. Hey, are you looking to level up your events? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Captivating Virtual Events. Woohoo! Woohoo!
Woo! This talk show features conversations that will teach you, yes, I'm talking to you, how to create captivating virtual and hybrid events that lead to, yes, connections. I'm Shannon Daniels, founder and CEO of Encaptive, coming to you with my co-host,
Definitely Zaflan, and I am your virtual events navigator and producer here at Captivating Virtual Events. In case you're wondering what the show is all about, well, I guess you have to tune in, right, Shannon? Because, hey, hello, if you want to learn a little bit more about the series, well, we're going to talk about who we will be featuring at our shows. Well, you just have to tune in. When, Shannon?
You got to tune in every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's New York time for those of you who are doing the math. We will be live broadcasting every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. But what happens if you're unable to make it? If you get caught up? Well, if you are able to make it, you're just going to hop through this door right here and join right in. But if you miss the live broadcast, you can still go through this door. And then what happens if they miss the live broadcast, Zach?
Well, if they miss a live broadcast, folks, wherever you're tuning in, even though if you're tuning on social media, you won't find them, the replays, on social media, but you'll find them here. Boom! Right there, right on your screen, it says bit.ly and Captivating Virtual Events, and that's where you will be watching all those replays. Well, everybody, we're excited. We're looking forward to see you on our live broadcast. And again, in case you miss it, because you have to do a lot of things in life, this is where you catch the replays, and it is bit.ly and Captivating Virtual Events. Until then, are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited?
Boom!
Boom! All right, folks, we'll see you. We'll see you on the other side of that door. Until then, bye, 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 everybody. See ya.
I can't hear you, Zeph.
Ah! Oops.
We got
Can you
you.
hear me now? Can you hear me
It's
now?
a signal.
Oh my goodness. When was the last time you actually experienced that? I felt like in the past 18 months, we've had a lot of that going on,
Yes,
right?
we
Well,
absolutely have.
everybody, welcome back to the and captivating virtual events. I am one of your co-hosts here, and I'm definitely Zeph Zan with my co-host.
Shannon McIndaniels.
We have not, I know I've not had my coffee yet, so I have this right here just in case. But everybody
I've got
knows, right,
mine
Shannon,
here
I don't really need
too.
caffeine, because, I have a natural built in caffeine in my body.
The 100
Welcome,
mile per hour
everybody.
entrepreneur.
I know. I'm kind of excited for today's episode. In case you missed our promotional marketing materials out there on social media, we are going to talk about, is this thing on? Can you hear me now? Yes, presenter best practices to be a shining star. How hard is it to be a shining star in this virtual events age, do you think, Shannon?
I think if you have the right tips, the right know-how, the right preparation, and Gino, I don't spoiler, Gino's joining us today. I'll let you introduce him because I'll go on too long. But Gino is amazing and he's going to be sharing some awesome tips. And I'm going to be totally geeking out because we went to grad school and got our master's in communication together. So I'm very excited. But you can be a shining star. It is not impossible. Anybody can do it with the right know-how and the right amount of practice.
Definitely. Boom. Mic drop. I even brought my smiley faces rings. I'm talking the opposite way. Smiley faces rings. So I can just like put this up and encourage everybody to smile when Gino speaks. So I'm going to let you bring him on. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom. Hi,
Boom!
Gino. Good morning.
Hi, Zeph. Hi, Shannon. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
We're so
Good
excited.
morning.
I
Good
am so
I'd say
morning.
excited because
Beyonce would be very proud.
yes, I would be doing that all day if I could. Anyways, so let's get started. So, for the past 18 months, and I think most recently we just finished up a women's summit. We talk a lot about this, presenting at virtual events. Let's get started with this first question because I want to know, like, especially the
Well,
past
Zeph,
18 months.
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. Before we get started, can we have Gino
Yes.
introduce himself real quick?
Absolutely. See, I tell you, I don't need caffeine in the morning. I just want to
Amazing
go, go,
energy.
Go,
go
go,
at
go, go,
200
go.
miles per hour. Boom, boom. Yes,
Boom.
Gino, please do the honor of
Sure.
introducing you and what you do.
Sure. Gino Perrotte. Perrotte like karate. Easy way to remember the
I love
pronunciation.
that.
And I am a public speaking coach and have also been teaching public speaking at the university level at some big name universities for the past 13 plus years. So, what I'm going to bring to you today is important because it's going to be from two areas. Yes, best practices, because I have been speaking in front of audiences with hundreds of people up on the stage, all lights on me. But I also speak virtually, so alone in a room like today. So I've done a lot of different speaking situations, whether it's for corporations, whether it's for organizations or for school groups. And yes, you're going to get some best practices, meaning what's worked well for me. But I think the more important side of things is you're going to get the theoretical understanding. And that's from my academic background, that not only what has worked, but why. And the why is important because it allows us to adapt to the changing situations, which are constant in today's world. So you don't just keep replicating the same thing. What worked last week may not work this week. And you should always be thinking about, what am I doing? Why should I be doing that? Should I switch up anything? So that's what I'll be bringing for you today, those tips, but also the theoretical understanding.
Yay, like I said, geeking out.
Geeking out right here too. So smile, everybody, smile, right? So a big part of my personal experience for the 18 months, right? I hear a lot from speakers, presenters at virtual events that there's been a big learning curve for them, right?
Sure.
Especially if they've been invited to present on a big stage of a virtual event. Like for me, I've not had the opportunity to be on a big stage until like coming up November. Even though I've done this like God a lot of times, I still feel nervous and trying to think like, what can I set up just to make sure that, I have a backup plan to the backup plan. But what have you seen like the biggest learning curve for speakers and presenters, especially in the past 18 months to probably 2 years?
It's about, to me, structure. And what I mean by that is recognizing first, public speaking, period, whether it's virtual or in person, it has two
Mm-hmm.
major components, and we break it apart in the classroom this way. There's the content. So you need to be focusing on what you're saying, and that's intersecting both you, meaning what's your expertise, what do you really know a lot about and can add value. And then the second part, of course, are the audience members. What are they
Yes.
expecting? What do they like to hear? What's interesting for them? Because one of the main roles as a speaker is to facilitate listening. Your audience doesn't have to listen to you. So it's our job to figure out how we speak to them in a way that invites them in, makes them want to hear and remember. So content. And then the second part is what probably most of us think of because it's visual, and that's the delivery aspect. And both Zeph and Shannon, you're amazing at this. So people are watching this and then they try to copy somebody. And all three of us are experienced speakers, but very different styles. And it's finding your style and relaxing into it and realizing that not everybody's going to want your style, and that's okay. Who do you connect with and resonate with? And then the third aspect is the learning curve of technology. And as you said, even the most experienced tech shit happens.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that word?
Yes.
That's right. This is YouTube. It's not network TV. It happens. So how do you navigate that? And most importantly, how do you not let it get you off track? So it happens, fix it. If your video goes out, then you just go on with it audio. So those would be the biggest learning curves, are those three areas, is understanding they're separate and knowing which ones you really need to focus on.
Yep. And one of the things that I love to talk with people about, because I used to teach as well. Gino and I taught together at one of those big name schools for a while. And one of the things that I noticed is certain instructors really focus on the content, and certain instructors really focus on the delivery when we're talking about presenting. And for me personally, I feel like you have to focus on both because they're both important. Yes, when we're looking at communication dynamics, words aren't necessarily as important as the nonverbals and the vocalics and all of those things. What I mean by vocalics are your rate, your pitch, your speed, your projection, your articulation, all of that kind of stuff. But they are both very important. If you have the wrong message, then people aren't going to pay attention, or likewise, if your message isn't structured in a way that makes sense, people aren't going to be able to follow it. But at the same time, if you have the best content but your delivery is not there, people are going to be falling asleep in the audience. And then that third component that Gino brought in, the tech component, is so important right now because we're so used to just flipping on a Zoom camera, sitting down and going. And it's not the same when you're presenting on a virtual stage. You got to level that up. Boom, Zeph, there it is. Level up. That's what we're talking about in captivating virtual events. So you've got to level that up, and you have to do things like Zeph and I had a little funny intro here of, is this thing on? Right? Because that's what we're talking about today. That's a piece of it, is you have to make sure that you check your technology, that it's working. And that's going to help with that. I've been working with a lot of people lately on anxiety around public speaking. That's going to help reduce anxiety as well. So I'll hand it back over to Gino, but those are three very important points. And I feel like the dynamics of all of them have to come together for you to be the shining star.
Yeah. So folks, I'm just telling everybody out there right now, if you're tuning in, right, just to let you know, if you're here, don't be a ghost. There's a Sightline chat. Go ahead and chat, drop a comment, say hello, let us know that you're here. We just don't want you to be the fly on the wall, right? Join in the conversation. It makes much more engagement and exciting. So, let's just make that a practice at virtual events, because as presenters and speakers, I talk a lot about this too, is part of my delivery is really about getting engagement going. And engagement is like not only speaking on camera, but I'm also engaging with my sightliners, right? So I love everything that you shared, Gino. A big part of how I resonated with your point number two is the delivery part. I talk about this a lot. I'm such a live video person. Like, I want that eyes, looking down in the camera is just like looking into your soul. I'm having a
Yeah.
conversation with you. Yeah, you right there, right? And I think a lot of presenters, because it's so often in real life presentations, they're working the room. Now they're on camera, they're trying to figure out like what am I looking at. And often, I do this mistake too sometimes. Often we forget that we actually have an audience, whether it's live, on replay. We want to make it exciting. We want to make it conversational. For me, whenever I do a show, part of my delivery format is like, I'm in a cafe, sitting down with my friends, having a chat, having a conversation. And I think people resonate with that.
Yep.
What's your thoughts about that? Being natural to who you are. You don't have to be somebody else, and that's very important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what it does is it's about resonating from the inside out. And when I say resonate, just like a sound, it's a vibration. It enters an echo chamber and the sound bounces around and resonates. It's an energy. The resonating that happens for us is the emotional not resignation, but resonating is the emotional vibration. It's the energy that's bouncing around from the inside of our body. And then it gets projected two ways mainly. Zeph, you're exceptionally good at these two, and they work great on video. It's your vocalics, which Shannon already introduced. You have a very good range of vocals. You're like a Mariah Carey or Celine Dion with a speaking voice. There's so much agility in that voice, and it creates emotional responses to those sounds. So you are using it as a tool to make us feel something excited, enthusiastic. Then the second thing are gestures, because they take energy. The bigger your gestures, the faster your gestures, the more energy it takes. So it's communicating excitement. And then your viewers, when they're watching this, we're taking that information in through our eyes. It does something to our brains. It triggers the response in our body. And the eye contact part that you talked about is important because research has shown that it takes about 2 to 3 seconds of direct eye contact. And then we become the tuning fork as the speaker, meaning whatever vibration we are resonating at, when somebody looks at us in the eyes for 2 to 3 seconds, we start to sync brain waves. They sync up to us and match us. So it's a great privilege and responsibility when we're the speaker because we are the tuning fork. It's everybody else's eyes and ears that are on us. So I always bring it back to the speaker that part of your content is not just the words, but it's the emotional element. By the end of this talk, how do you want the people to feel? What are the ethics behind that? And then the persuasion aspects. What do they need to feel in order to be influenced to move in the direction that you want them to move? That will be a benefit to them. And it's often a benefit to us. There's nothing wrong with it benefiting everybody, but it definitely has to be a benefit for the listeners in terms of the ethical piece.
Yeah, and
Wow,
one of
I'm
the things
having
you brought up
goosies.
there, oh, sorry. Yeah.
It's
One
okay.
of the things you brought up there, Gino, was eye contact. And I get asked about that often, like, how do I make eye contact in virtual? And we have all of these little screens, if you're on a Zoom meeting or something, you got 50 people on there, you're looking around. And as I'm looking at Gino, my eyes go down. As I'm
Yeah.
looking at Zeph, my eyes go over here. As I'm looking at the chat, it goes over there. And even if I don't turn my head, my eye gaze is moving around.
Yeah.
So how do you make eye contact when you're in virtual? And one of the tips and tricks that I've taught is it seems really weird to not be looking at all the people on the screen, but look into your web camera, like
Sure.
right into your web camera, because then that makes it feel more like
Yep.
you're looking at the folks on the other end of the screen, because the people who are consuming it aren't seeing your eyes like this or like this. They're seeing it,
Yeah.
boom, right
Yeah.
there looking at them. Do you have any other tips for making that connection, making that eye contact, sending those vibrations that you were talking about
Yep.
through a screen?
Yep. The first is eye level. So it goes back to the basics. We are replicating face-to-face communication through virtual. We all know it's not the same, and that has its pluses and its minuses. but we're replicating it. So when you have a conversation that feels good, typically it's happening at eye level. You're both standing, you're both sitting, you're not having this power dynamic of a height difference beyond your normal heights as human beings. So eye contact, I have my computer elevated, and it's then the external webcam's on top, and I use an external cam because the quality is better. And then I have a wireless keyboard, so I'm able to have my keyboard down at a natural typing height that's healthy for my posture. But I'm creating this eye contact level, so that's important. And then it brings us back to that 2 to 3 second rule. Look in the you only need to look 2 to 3 seconds, and then you can glance away and look at the people for another 2 to 3 seconds. You're reading the room. How are they responding? What are their facial expressions? Then I need to come back for another 2 to 3 seconds, talk a little more, and then I can switch away again. From nonverbal research, this is really interesting. There's a line of research that examines the nonverbals of the listener and the speaker in a conversation. When we are assuming the speaker turn, when we're the person speaking, our eyes get to be part of the communication. We're speaking, but our eyes get to look away, and the directions and how we're looking, do we roll them? They're all are they getting really big? Are they getting really small? They send a message. So as the speaker, we don't need to stare at the listener. But the listener, which is really interesting, when we're done speaking and we become the listener and the other person starts to speak, then our eyes stop moving around and expressing, and they are zoned in on the speaker because they are picking up, just like our ears, all eyes, all ears on the speaker to get as much of the information as we can, pull it in to try to understand the message. So as the speaker, do not feel that you need to stare at the camera. That would actually be really unnatural. You get to 2 to 3 seconds, connect, and then use your eyes to express. 2 to 3 seconds, look around, read the face, come back.
That's great advice. I love that.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm having goosies and having fun as, Gino was just sharing all of those tips. I was thinking through about my own process of just showing up and speaking and presenting. I must say, I'm not a trained speaker nor presenter. I think it's just something that I've taken on because I do a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
Practice becomes part of who I am, and it makes it easier to show up authentically, Shannon, like you said. So one of the things that I often, try, because this is one of the tips I took away from a YouTuber a long time ago. Can't remember exactly what he was talking about, but what came through for me was he said, the reason, we actually added videos in YouTube in a certain way so that there's eye movement constantly changing, and it kind of, from the audience's perspective, it tends to keep them focused on the video, in addition to making it much more fun, engaging, exciting. But I took that concept on and I thought about what's the experience when I sit down and chat with my good friends, like over coffee, right? At a bistro, cafe, restaurant. I try to assimilate that experience by just what would it be like? Even though if it's in a Zoom room, I'm trying to have rapid eye movement so that people don't go wait, what? Right? So that's always something that I'm aware of, and I'm mindful about that because I know I don't want to go into a meeting like a virtual event session and go oh my God, this is so boring. I can't wait to leave, right?
Yeah.
So I thank you, Gino, for actually saying that, because I'm I'm kind of spot on that. I love the fact that, the eye to eye, 2 to 3 seconds, and having, for me, I put it up right here. Pay attention to nonverbals of the listener and speaker. I agree. Sometimes I go into Zoom rooms or, online meetings. I go, I can pick up those snoozes. So, I love that, those tips. Everyone, I'm just going to take a 30 seconds break, and we'll come back and pick up this conversation. We'll see you right back.
Explore and discover with us why virtual events are becoming more essential to what you do and how you connect with the audience. How to choose the right type of virtual event for you. What kind of tools and resources are needed to produce your virtual event. How to pick the right virtual event service providers. How to monetize and profit from your virtual event. For more exclusive content, resources, and opportunities regarding virtual events. Join our online community.
Welcome back, everybody. You are tuning in into and captivating virtual events today. Our speaker Gino Perrotte, just like he said, like karate. Just think about that, and you got his name right. Shannon, what else? I think we'd like to hear from Gino, because I think that's a lot. I feel like I'm in a classroom right now. It's such a big learning curve, and I think it's so true. And recently, I connected with a local NSA chapter, and I saw a post by the I think the president, and she said like speakers now have to be radically in tune with technology and showing up at virtual events, and a big part of speaking at virtual events, that's almost I wouldn't say a culture, but there's some sort of an expectation that you can work the room and do a lot of things, because there's a lot of moving parts when you speak at a virtual event. What's your take on that, Shannon?
Yeah, so I think the tips Gino gave are great. Like, I love the idea of not just having to stare into the camera, but moving around and making eye contact. And I do find myself checking other people on the screen for their nonverbal responses, right? How is this being received? While at the same time trying to make that eye contact through the screen. And then, but being prepared for those big stages and all that stuff, how do you create that's a tough thing to do. One of the things that I've learned is energy in person is different than energy on screen. So when you are on screen, you have to take it to Zeph level energy. If not, you're in danger of falling flat on the screen. So you really have to amp up the energy level when you are in virtual. And I know it feels super weird to be like, I feel like I'm bouncing up and down and screaming and being so happy and joyous. And you obviously don't want to overdo it. And to the point that Gino was saying, don't try to mimic someone else. Be yourself. Authenticity is key. Do what feels comfortable to you. Do what feels natural to you, because you feel comfortable and natural. Your audience is going to read that, and they're going to relate to you more, and you're going to pull them into your presentation more. And that goes for whether you are virtual or you are in person. And so you need to make sure that you are being you, because everybody else is taken, right? That whole quote. And really, that's all about being authentic and true to who you are. And then also, for me in virtual, I think a big miss that I see when presenters are trying to come on a big stage, a main stage, and virtual, is that they don't come on early. They don't do those tech checks. They don't make sure their lighting's good. They don't make sure their background's good. We always come onto this show, even though we do it weekly, 20 minutes early to check everything, make sure it's working, make sure everything's set up. You have to do that. Like, you wouldn't show up for an in-person presentation right at go time expecting to be mic'd up and ready to go. If you show up in virtual just a minute or two in advance and expect to just flip on your camera and everything's going to work perfectly, guess what? Tech gremlins happen. And if that happens and you're not ready to go and feeling comfortable with the technology, that ups the anxiety level, that makes you more flustered. And then that comes through, that flustered feeling, as much as you try to hide it, it will come through in your presentations. Gino, your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, that goes down to the base energy again of what you're broadcasting when I was talking about resonating. So comfort level, security, being grounded in yourself, that's not necessarily the emotional message that you're sending where you want people to be excited or inquisitive or curious, but that's always got to be at the basis, the ground level, because that's how people know that you're secure in the message. It is part of the message, even though it's not the dominant emotion that you're trying to express in people. I wanted to backtrack real quick to what we were just saying before the break about eye contact. I think one area where people who are just starting with virtual speaking get hung up, they may do the 2 to 3 seconds and then read the screen, but they're watching themselves. And that doesn't exist in the real world. I've never been in a speaking room, thank God, where there are mirrors in the back wall. So I'm watching myself at the same time.
I'm trying to find myself.
Yeah. So you can't watch yourself as the speaker because you're not being a listener. You're distracting. You're watching a speaker and it's you, right? So make sure when you're looking down at the screen, you're scanning the listeners, not you as the speaker. So yeah, broadcasting your energy is an extremely important way to get people feeling comfortable, as you said. And one of the nonverbals that's key for that is to be aware if you do any self-touching behavior called the adapters. Adapter gestures are things like some of us will play with our fingernails. My sister used to twirl her bracelet when we would meet with our boss years ago. Some people move their hair even when it's not in the way. And when you do these things, you do them because they make you feel comfortable, because you're nervous. Oh, it makes me feel better. But when your audience views it, it actually can make them feel nervous, transfer the nervous energy that you're getting out of you. They see it and it can trigger the nervousness in them, which obviously isn't good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful because you know what? In past production experiences with virtual summits and conferences, one of the big things, because I started in the space of live streaming and live broadcasting, we hear a lot of live streamers share this I would say the same opinion about what you just shared just now, is the fact that if you try to be somebody else, or if you're trying so hard to not be nervous and not trying to relax, pretty much it'll come through, right?
Yeah.
And your audiences, you just can't fake it. Your audiences will pick up that energy, and they will know that, oh my god, this person is not prepared, or this is going to be they already have that kind of anticipation, like, oh, this is going to be a bad session, right? Or I don't know, so it's distracting, I think. And I love that you just shared that, because that is important. People, don't try to be somebody else. Shan, you said, authenticity is number one. One of the biggest things, this is really something that I work on. I wouldn't say work on really hard, but I think I've done it enough to kind of be natural. It's just a part of who I am. So one of the big things, I didn't realize this, and back a few years ago, I had this virtual internship, and one of my interns, who was, I can't remember where she was, New York or France, I can't remember where, but she had said this. She says, you are exactly the same person you are on camera. And I was like, wow. It didn't resonate with me until later. People keep saying that, and I'm having Zav Goosies. Anna, if you're in the house, put in the hashtag Zav Goosies. I'm having goosies because a lot of what we're discussing today is so spot on. It just takes practice, and we are talking about best practices. It takes practice, and I often share this. I don't care if you're on camera for the 10th time and you feel like throwing up. It's okay, because it's natural. Because you are speaking to the world in a way. But practice makes I wouldn't say perfect. Practice makes progress, right? Because you get better at what you do and do it often, that it becomes a part of you. Or you don't think about like, I have to be like so spot on like a robot. Nobody wants to experience that. It's just engagement. I think before we go, we have a couple of minutes, but I really want to have everybody share this. Like, people come in because of the world stages that we're on, speaking in person. People take that concept of speaking and presenting in a big way. And I get it, especially if you're asked to speak on big stages. But the virtual world is kind of very forgiving, and they want natural, authentic self of who you are. Can you please share, before we go, probably 30 seconds, 45 seconds, what's your advice to our audiences who are professional speakers, presenters, who probably do not have a lot of experiences working the virtual event stages? What would be your one tip if they were to work on for the next 30 days? What would that be, Gino?
If you're going to speak authentically, you have to know what you're speaking from, meaning your values, because that's what's coming out, even if you don't know it. So understand your values. I do have a values discovery exercise, and I run a workshop on that. That is actually next Thursday. It starts 75 minutes, noon Eastern time. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Instagram. Send an email to gino@rightbrainjourneys.com. But know what you value. That's the number one tip, without a doubt, because that's the beginning of finding your voice. The voice already exists, but if you don't have a conscious idea of what that voice is, you can't really strategize. And public speaking is that content aspect, as we mentioned, and content is strategic. You're planning it for maximum impact. So you got to know where you're coming from, where you're speaking from values wise. That's where your energy starts.
Yep. And I think that's an amazing tip. And that's something that I teach people whenever they're coming to me for public speaking coaching, because I still do a bit of that on the side. I just can't let it go. I love it so much. That's part of my brand and who I am. And one of the stories I like to tell is when I first started out in public speaking as an entrepreneur, I was so used to being in this corporate mold. And when I became an entrepreneur and was going around and speaking, I was trying very hard to fit a certain brand in a certain mold, and I wasn't attracting people to me. I was like, I don't understand. I'm doing everything right and all of this. And I was missing that authenticity piece because I had been so programmed to speak in a certain way in my corporate
Yeah.
environment. And I think one of the amazing things that virtual has done, and I've read some articles about this, and we could go down another rabbit hole. I know we're out of time, but is that it's allowed people to kind of feel more comfortable in their own environments and feel more themselves and reach down and grab that authenticity and who they are and what they're doing. And so that's starting to translate a bit more in the screen. And so what I would encourage people to do is be your authentic and true self. As soon as I let down that wall and I said, listen, I'm goofy, I'm weird, my hands go everywhere, I'm Italian, I talk too fast. That's when I started really connecting with my audiences. And so since you're home right now and you have this opportunity to practice. Do, if you're looking to get on big stages, practice, get some friends and family on, start by talking to them where you feel comfortable, and gradually start doing more and more and more and branching yourself out until you really find your voice. And what Gina was mentioning as well. So
I love it. And for me, before I go, I would love to leave this with all of you from a production angle. One of the things, if you want to speak at a lot more virtual events, the bigger stages, one of the big things, I just spoke to somebody at one of the summits that I produced this past week. I said, presenters and speakers these days really have to be, I would say, present in the social or remote world or virtual world. The reason I say this is because there's many producers or event organizers, hosts, whenever they book speakers as presenters, they want to see there's some sort of a social proof that you can do exactly what you say you can do, right? And if you don't have a video, you don't have this and that, and if you're not speaking even at, maybe podcast or live broadcast like this one, show series, I would highly encourage you to find, I would say talk show hosts, that have live broadcasts or podcasts, and ask them, "Would you like to, have me speak at your event?" Somewhere where you can be a little bit more visual, because I think there needs to be, like a social proof, more social proof, especially in the media, video format or audio format, so that when somebody books you to present at a virtual event, they know you have the virtual event experience. So that said, I am bummed out because we're like at the end of the show.
who
Any
wants to have
last words?
Gino back?
Yes, we'll definitely have you back, because half an hour sometimes it's just like we have so much to share. But folks, I just want to say thank you so much to Gino for showing up today and sharing his wisdom on the show, and most importantly, also for all of you. In case you don't remember this, but we do not have a replay because we do stream it out live to LinkedIn, but we won't have the replay there, the full replay. So where do we catch the replay? Right here. Catch replays at Bitly and Captivating Virtual Events. The other thing is Shannon and I, we have this event tech and production guide. If you catch the replay here, you will be able to get more information on how you can get your event tech and production guide. Just say yes in the comments and we will be in touch with you, or you can go to Bitly and Captivating Virtual Events. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Gino. Thank you to my
Thank you.
sidekick, Shannon. Until then, everybody, we'll see you in the next episode of Captivating Virtual Events. Bye.